This comes down to Quinn Ewers and Steve Sarkisian for me, because that's what Texas football is about to become if it hasn't been that already. We learned on Tuesday night that Christian Clark went down with an Achilles tendon injury that's going to sideline him for the rest of the season. It means that Texas is now down C.J. Baxter and Christian Clark, which means two of their top three running backs on the depth chart are out for the season. So already you're down to 4 scholarship tailbacks, a couple that you are going to depend on, one in Trey Wisner and Jared Gibson, and then you're going to ask questions about who can fill that space. Nice thing about running back is that almost everybody can play running back. The bad thing about running back is that it is your most important pass protector from the skill positions, right? It is a guy that has to work in concert with the offensive line and is particularly critical at a place like Texas with Quinn Ewers, because Quinn Ewers has gone down with injury in each of the last 2 seasons, and a lot of that comes back to, can you protect the quarterback? It is a downfield passing offense at Texas, meaning that it's not really built on air raid concepts. Air raid concepts mean getting the ball out quicker so that the pass rush can't get to you because you can't pass block. One of the reasons that the air raid became popular is because there were so many tailbacks that could not pass block. And nobody's saying that that's what Steve Sarkisian is going to do, and it's evidence to show that it's probably not what he's going to do, or that that's something that they should do. However, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, what do we know about Texas aside from these injuries? We know that Quinn Ewers is a Heisman Trophy candidate. We know that Quinn Ewers is one of the best quarterbacks in the sport. And we know that Quinn Ewers is good enough to lead them to a college football playoff and SEC wins, right? The thing I find interesting about that is he's going to do this with mostly a new group of receivers. While I'm very high on guys like Jonte Cook and Amari Niblack, he's also learning chemistry with Silas Bolden, with Isaiah Bond, with Matthew Golden, and Juan Davis and Gunnar Helm, and how quickly that rapport gets to a level of being on the same wavelength is really going to tell us a lot about just how effective the run game can be, because I think the offensive line is going to be okay, and I think those tailbacks are good enough to go get you 1,000 yards, and there's reason to believe that they can still do that. Where I'm kind of interested in this is, how is this going to affect Steve Sarkisian's play calling? Because one of the things that I don't believe enough people talk about when they talk about Texas football, particularly Steve Sarkisian and the offenses that he calls, that man loves to run the football. As a matter of fact, if you asked him if he could pack just 2 things with him everywhere he goes when he's playing football, he would tell you a defense and a run game. You'll notice that the pass game is something that we like to have, and it's good and it's fun. But the thing that the quarterback from BYU wants, the guy that worked for Pete Carroll, the guy that worked for Nick Saban, the guy that worked in the NFL, the guy that has coordinated national championship teams wants, is a run game. And one of the reasons that you can run the ball effectively is you can throw it effectively, and you have a running back that everybody has to respect no matter what he's doing. So if you got a tailback back there that can't pass block, we know that that person's only in there to catch passes and to run the football. And that's another thing that these tailbacks have to do in Steve Sarkisian's offense. Last year, Xavier Worthy had 75 receptions. The running back tandem of C.J. Baxter and trio, C.J. Baxter, Jaydon Blue, and Jonathan Brooks had 71. They're going to throw swing passes, and they're going to get guys out in space. They're going to use misdirection. They're going to use jet motions to get guys open. But they're also still going to run the football. And the way that I really want to drive this home is if you take a look at Steve Sarkisian's track record at Washington and USC, you will see in 5 years at Washington, he had a 1,000-yard back in Chris Polk in 2011, a 1,000-yard back in 2012 in Bishop Sankey, a 1,000-yard back in 2013 in Bishop Sankey, and then 2014 at SC, Javorius Allen had 1,000 yards, and even in the year that he was let go, 2015, SC had 2 1,000-yard rushers, and of course, he had Najee Harris in 2019 and 2020, and then 2021, 2022, he had Bijan Robinson in 2020 as well, 2021, and then 2022 he had, it's Bijan again. I'm making myself think about this because Bijan went for damn near 1,600 yards, and then last year was Jonathan Brooks. I think 1,000 yards is something you've been able to book for Steve Sarkisian. It might be a little bit more difficult to come by, or it might come from a player that we are still learning about in a Trey Wisner or a Jared Gibson or anybody else for that matter. But I think they're still going to run the football, and I still think that's going to be a big part of Texas's offense because it must be. I don't think that the man really needed I don't think he needed to say more than that, right? I think just knowing that you have these injuries this early in the preseason means that you can start to evaluate what you have and also start to tweak your passing game as much as you need to. And I think that's probably going to be the thing that we talk about with Steve Sarkisian. What does the pass game look like? How vertical or horizontal is it? And how long does Quinn Ewers get to hold the ball before we start talking about, he might be in trouble? Again, that offensive line is going to be such a big deal. It was already a big deal. Every offensive line in major college football is a big deal. But theirs now needs to be able to carry an unproven tailback in Jaydon Blue, Trey Wisner, and Jared Gibson. I don't know why I wasn't talking about Jaydon Blue earlier. I think it's because I already just slot him in as a guy that's going to be speeding down the sideline. But you're going to be able to use those guys. It's just how are you going to use them? It's who of those dudes, maybe it is Jaydon Blue, that ends up going for 1,200 yards in this 2024 season. And we're going to get to find this out, frankly, because they got one of the biggest non-conference games on the schedule, one that I think is actually going to help shape the college football playoff when they travel to Ann Arbor to play Michigan, who also is experiencing some setbacks. Just theirs aren't necessarily on the field. We still don't even know if Alex Orji or Jack Tuttle is going to be the starting quarterback there. But I still think that Texas is in a good position to make a run at the SEC championship, and I still think that Texas is in a good position to go up to Ann Arbor and come back to Austin with a win as they get set for their first year in the SEC and trying to get back to the college football playoff for the second year